The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government, under the assertive leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan, has pursued quite an overt, clear, and firm foreign policy objective and their respective implications. Since Imran Khan has come to power, the world's political peculiarities remained quite stirring, which pushed Pakistan into the hard waters regarding propagating its foreign policy's prerogative in the international arena. These challenges include Islamophobia, the Middle Eastern countries accepting Israel, the US-China new Cold War, Narendra Modi's extremist regime, and last but not the least, the clumsy pull out of the US-led NATO forces from Afghanistan. The most important challenge in front of Imran Khan was the unflinching support of the United States towards India while ignoring India's human rights violations in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and its state-sponsored terrorism and propaganda tactics against Pakistan. Pakistan, while rebuffing the manipulative role of India in the FATF, remained committed to fulfilling the requirements of the watch group, as well as Prime Minister Imran Khan keep on highlighting the atrocities of the terroristic tinted government of Narendra Modi in India and Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir at all the core international forums, most prominently 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. On the other hand, Prime Minister Imran Khan's inauguration of visa-free Kartarpur corridor for Indian Sikh pilgrims was another blow on the Brahminic-tilted secular India. Despite all the difficulties under the leadership of Imran Khan, Pakistan remained committed to using its strategic location for geopolitical as well as geoeconomic gains. Imran Khan's firm stance of promoting multilateralism in the world is clashing with the stance of established hegemon. However, Prime Minister Imran Khan has already asserted that Pakistan wants civilized relations with the United States while accepting the fact that the United States has probably decided that India is its core ally in the South Asia. Hence, Imran Khan's statement echoed his cemented approach regarding not deteriorating the relations with China or any other country on the will of White House. Prime Minister Imran Khan's unflinching stance regarding not to be partner of war with United States in Afghanistan, not accepting Israel, overtly confronting Islamophobia, harmonized relations with Iran and Saudi Arabia, and prioritizing the independent relations with China and Russia are shaking the roots of the current world order.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our program Views and News. As we all know that today, the 3 years of PTI government and the achievements, whether at the domestic front or at the international level, perhaps in the economy or otherwise, they were all discussed. There was a huge ceremony in Islamabad. Prime Minister Imran Khan was there as well. And in particular, since we talk about the economic achievements, even during the time of Corona, Pakistan did a lot better than most of the countries. But there are a lot of challenges ahead also. You talk about, earlier you were watching the major achievements of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's government, whether you talk about the banking side or SARS program or the Sehat card issuance and so on and so forth. And there are so many major areas where I think the government did really well. But we'll be talking about the overall achievements regarding the foreign policy of Pakistan, because that is something which is very important, and you can well imagine the kind of development that has taken place in Afghanistan. Again, Pakistan has played a very major role in that. You talk about the Central Asian states. Our foreign minister is on a 3-day official visit where he met the leadership of Tajikistan and then Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and also he'll be going to Iran for that matter. As far as the relationship with Iran is concerned, I think that has also improved. Slowly but surely. You talk about the engagement of Pakistan with the Chinese. It was there, is there, and will remain there. And I think that has gotten really stronger with the passage of time. You talk about Russia. I think over there, on that particular front, Pakistan did a lot better. Whether you talk about General Bajwa or even you talk about the previous Chief of Army Staff, General Rahil, their visits to Russia, and then the visit of the Russian Foreign Minister to Pakistan, and then expected results could lead to a visit of the Russian President Vladimir Putin to Pakistan also. When you talk about Pakistan and USA, obviously there is still a lot of problem regarding the trust deficit, and then so much more is also happening. With the Western world, they believe that Pakistan has actually gone into the other group with the Chinese and the rest of the Asian countries, and the West perhaps is looking at it from a very different perspective, from a very different angle. And as far as the Americans are concerned, they have always looked at Pakistan from the last 20 years or so from the Afghan prism. But now situation is very different. Where will it lead? This is going to be the major discussion in our today's programs. To talk about on this particular issue, we have with us Lieutenant General retired Talat Masood Saab, senior analyst, writer, columnist in our studio, sir. Thank you so much, General Saab, for your time. And we'll also be talking to Mr. Jauhar Saleem. Excellency is the ambassador to Italy from Pakistan, and we'll be having Irfan Ghauri Saab on Skype, who's a senior journalist. He's also going to give his input. Ghauri Saab, thank you so much for your time, sir. But let me ask General Saab the first question to you regarding the overall efforts made by the current government of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf as far as the diplomatic front is concerned. Sir, I guess a lot has changed, and a lot has changed for better. Is that a correct statement, sir? Your take.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I think this government have made some very serious efforts, both the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister. And I think everyone in the cabinet, they have tried to sort of ensure that Pakistan's image improves, Pakistan's relations with countries have a qualitative change and for the better. But Pakistan was, of course, very much preoccupied by the conditions in Afghanistan, and that really cast a huge shadow on Pakistan's foreign relations, because it had to manage relations with a very hostile Afghan government.
Correct.
Because of India. In your introductory mentioned, I think you gave a very good overall picture. But one of the major factors which also influenced our foreign policy was the way that India was trying to sabotage Pakistan's efforts at having good relations with other countries, or diverting its attention towards, by its hostility towards security issues, whereas Pakistan would have liked to sort of focus more on economics and political harmony and relationship with other countries. So I think India has been a very sort of a negative factor as far as foreign policy is concerned, but not the fault of Pakistan, but the fault of the Indian leadership and especially of Narendra Modi. As far as relations with China were concerned, you very rightly mentioned they were very consistent, and we continue to sort of that be the anchor of Pakistan's foreign policy. And we think it's the most important relationship. It's a strategic relationship. It has practically a political, a strategic, and an economic dimension, all very important and very strong elements of this relationship. So I think this relationship will continue, although as you know, in the recent few months there have been efforts on the part of these militant groups to sort of damage the relationship, but nothing but damage.
Incident
but these are minor things, and the Chinese know that there are efforts. And then of course the CPAC is by itself binding Pakistan and China for years to come, years ahead. So in a way Pakistan, then at the same time Pakistan has been striving hard to have good relations with US. That is different, that as you rightly mentioned.
That is the real challenge at the moment,
yeah,
sir.
That is the real challenge, but at the same time Pakistan thinks that there is no conflict of interest as far as Pakistan is concerned. It can have good relations with China, excellent relations with China, strategic relations with China, and at the same time have good relations with the United States. It has repeatedly said that. The Prime Minister has also said that, and so has the Foreign Minister. But unfortunately, the Americans at the moment, so influenced by India and also so influenced by their opposition to the Chinese rise, and that it becomes very difficult for Pakistan to maintain a good relationship with US. But nonetheless, Pakistan has been trying. And as you see, that there has been a great level of cooperation as far as Afghanistan is concerned. In the, if you recall the past, the US was very critical about Pakistan's policies in Afghanistan. But then later on it realized that Pakistan was on the right path.
Exactly.
It was always giving the right advice and was pursuing the right policies. So then there was a better understanding, and I think Pakistan did facilitate US withdrawal, although it had wanted US to sort of do it more gradually.
Now, Jalsab, that is very well explained by you, but one important factor, and that is also about the Russians. I mean, we always thought that we were in the other bloc. Ever since I remember, sir, to be very honest, that Pakistan was always pursuing what the US used to, tell them or guide them out, the kind of benefit which we were getting from the Americans. But one major regional player that was united, at that time it was USSR, Soviet Union, and then now it's Russia. But sir, despite the fact that whatever Pakistan did to USSR, with the help of the Americans in Afghanistan, and eventually resulted in, disintegration of the entire huge areas of Soviet Union, Eastern Bloc, and then you're talking about to the southern side, and so many other countries, gained independence. Despite all odds, sir, Russians are still ready to work with Pakistan. Don't you think that is perhaps one of the major achievements during the past couple of years, sir?
Absolutely. You have really raised a very important aspect which needs to be covered in some detail. Actually, as far as we are concerned, at the moment we are very keen to have good relations with Russia. And it is unfortunate, we have an unfortunate history with the former Soviet Union. But that is the past. Now Pakistan and Russia, I think, both realize that it is very important that they have a better relationship, greater confidence, greater trade and commerce, and also greater diplomatic or foreign policy cooperation wherever it is feasible. And Pakistan thinks that Russia, China, Iran, and Pakistan are playing and have to play a very important role
Absolutely.
in stabilizing Afghanistan and stabilizing the region. So I think in that context also Pakistan and Russia will be coordinating and cooperating with each other. And then I think there is so much more that we can get out of our relationship with Russia. For instance, in the matters of defense also, Russia is one of the most advanced countries after, I think, after in certain areas, of course.
They're much ahead than USA.
In some areas. But so I think we can, and we have in the past also, helicopters and so many other items we have been getting from them. So I think that is one area we can cooperate. At the same time, we can also cooperate in this group for stabilizing Afghanistan and also the region. So I think there are multiple areas in which Pakistan and Russia can cooperate. And there is no reason why there has to be any inhibition of any sorts. And then I think we should also look at Iran, We must improve our relationship and the level of confidence with Iran. It has improved, as you rightly mentioned in your initial comments, that things are much better today with Iran than what they were. But I think we need to sort of improve our trade and business.
I think, sir, at the end of the day, it's more about geo-economics rather than geopolitics.
And it is the same with Russia.
Absolutely.
It is the same with China, and it should be the same with Iran.
So most likely, sir, the regional matters should be discussed, and I think Pakistan has really come up, or rather emerged, as a very major power in as far as decision making is concerned in Asia, sir. So we've also been joined in by Dr. Zarqa Sarwardi Saiba. She's from Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum salam ji. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you so much for taking out your time and talking to PTV World. Ma'am, we are talking about the efforts made by the current government of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf as far as the foreign policy is concerned. And I think on major fronts, Pakistan has been a very successful country. And I think when Imran Khan Sahib used to say that Afghanistan has only one solution, and that should be political and diplomatic solution. There is no military solution for this particular issue. And he was proven right, and eventually this is exactly what has happened. 20 years of war and turmoil eventually, ended up in the current situation as we see. First of all, ma'am, your take as a Pakistani, as a neutral observer, let's put it this way. Ma'am, during the last couple of years, as far as the foreign policy is concerned, your take.
Thank you so much, Rehman Saab. I think Pakistan has, at the age of 73, has suddenly come of age. The world view we used to take earlier was a very myopic and it was a very narrow view. We have 5 different countries whom we share borders with, and for the first time we have come out as a mature, sovereign nation from Prime Minister Imran Khan's speech to the United Nations, where he spoke about Islamophobia, where he openly brought out the atrocities that were done in Kashmir. He spoke about Kulbhushan Yadav, which issues that were there for many years, but none of our leaders had the guts or the confidence to go and speak about it. So he emerged as a world leader, and subsequently Pakistan was recognized as a sovereign nation. Then Pakistan's role in the Palestinian turmoil recently, where Israel, the way the ceasefire that was brought about, Pakistan's role in the Security Council and then in the General Assembly, it was laudable the way Foreign Minister Shah traveled, and he took on the Foreign Minister of Turkey, the Foreign Minister of Palestine. So the entire effort of Pakistan to bring about peace in the region. And then finally, what is happening in Afghanistan? I mean, the Pakistan standing for a partner in peace and not being a partner in war for the region. I mean, it is unprecedented. And because of this, and this is the sentiment of people of Pakistan, for the first time a leader could stand up Western powers and say, no, we are your partners in peace, but we will not be your mercenary soldiers or your mercenary fighters. We will not take on your wars which attack our own people, brothers in Afghanistan, our sisters in Afghanistan. We share the same blood, we share the same bottom. How can we let our land be used for attacking our own people? During the past regime, there have been 468 drone attacks on Pakistan by the US. We were their so-called ally in this war on terror. And 20 years down now, they themselves are seeing the result of their 20-year-old war on terror or off terror. They can't even decide what it was. And 11th September is approaching, and I think it is very good that they should take stock. And we have taken stock. We have suffered. 80,000 of our people have died in these wars.
That's correct.
Which were not our wars. So Pakistan's coming of age and realizing that we are a nation, we are a free nation, but there are certain responsibilities with this freedom, and our foreign policy now is showing all of this. And there is a lot to be done.
Dr. Zarqa, another question for you, because I think whenever you talk about Prime Minister Imran Khan, I mean, he has taken certain very important decisions, whether you talk about raising the issue of Kashmir in the United Nations, or perhaps talking about Islamophobia or climate change for that matter. I mean, these are very, very important issues and very close to his heart also. Ma'am, one single sentence that was absolutely not. A lot of people, rather it shocked the entire Western world that the Prime Minister of Pakistan, perhaps Pakistan is in a lot of problem, and saying absolutely not. I mean, that was something which people took as negative, as well as a lot of people took it very positively. Your personal take on that particular statement?
I think you have, once you follow the Prime Minister, you see he is a man who speaks from his heart. There is no artifice, there is no duplicity over there. So if you've noticed, he doesn't even speak from notes. He speaks extempore. So when he said absolutely not, it was something that he is very convinced about. In as far back as 1999, he said that the war, you cannot win the war in Afghanistan through military means. It has to be done politically. You have to sit down on the table with the Taliban, with the Afghans, and sort this out diplomatically. So his view, and at one time he was called Taliban Khan, and we've been seeing clips of his on television 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that he said that no, the only solution is diplomatic. And so America has seen it the hard way, and so has the rest of the world. So it is not possible. Nowhere in the world can you subjugate a nation. And then a nation like the Afghans, who have not, the British could not subjugate them 200 years ago. The Russians could not do it, and the Americans have failed miserably. And they lost $1 trillion in Afghanistan, 85 billion US dollars, taxpayers' money. They left behind equipment. They left behind, they have like 200 aeroplanes and Hawks over there. They have the most modern machinery. They have night goggles. They have, you name it, the art equipment that the Americans have left behind in Afghanistan. And it is half of it is of no use because they've taken the software away. So what I'm trying to say is it is a waste of the taxpayers' money from the United States. And I hope that this time they realize it. If they had built hospitals, or if they had built schools in Afghanistan, if they had done things for the good of the common man.
I think, ma'am, the biggest achievement would be about the negative role of India that was there in Afghanistan for the last 20 years, whether during the time of Karzai or even during the time of Ashraf Ghani. That has not only been eroded, I think that has been totally taken out. That's been eliminated. I think that is perhaps the real achievement. But I would like to say thank you so much, ma'am, for your comments. Thank you very much once again. Now, Jal Sahab, if you allow me, sir, we'll also talk to Irfan Ghauri Sahab. Ghauri Sahab has joined us on Skype. Ghauri Sahab, Assalamu Alaikum ji.
Wa Alaikum Assalam.
Ghauri Sahab, since we did talk about Pak-USA relationship, Pak-Afghanistan, Pak-India, Pakistan, Russia, Now, another very important factor, and that is about the relationship between Pakistan and the Arab countries, the Middle Eastern countries, in particular UAE and Saudi Arabia. Most of our remittances, they come from that area. And I still fail to understand where exactly are we, because it seems that the Indian influence is so much over there. You talk about Bahrain, you talk about Saudi Arabia, you talk about UAE. Narendra Modi was presented with the highest civil award there, and that was something which wasn't much liked by the Pakistani public, to be very honest. Now the point is that at the same time, so we hear that when Prince Mohammed bin Salman came to Pakistan, and he said, well, look upon me as an ambassador of Pakistan in Saudi Arabia. So we all thought, the relationship is really improving. But having said that, sir, especially because of the Yemen issue, things got different. And then on top, UAE, their issue perhaps, I still fail to understand what sort of a relationship do we have with UAE. Let's throw light on that aspect, sir.
Yes, Faisal, thank you very much. And I think initially, when the PTI government came to power, I think there were some mistakes on our parts as well. I mean, when I say our part, I'm saying some statements from the ministers. If you recall, in the very beginning, there was a statement from one of our ministers about, CPAC. Then when Prime Minister himself, he went to United Nations and over there, he made a statement that was, forming a block where it is the Turkey and Malaysia and Pakistan, and that didn't fare well with the Saudis, and we have seen the reaction from the Saudis on that. Similarly, yes, the Yemen crisis that was already there, and the Saudis, they had expectations, but they were expecting at that time. But I think that was a very, very sort of a move, very intelligent move from Pakistan, because had we been engaged in the way they wanted us, that would have been, very created a difficult situation for us. And similarly, when it comes to, the relationship with the Middle Eastern countries, with Israel. So that is also a point where we and these Gulf countries had, where we had difference of opinion. But now I think this is the time we are now at a very, critical juncture of the history, especially the situation in Afghanistan, because here, though we should make it clear to the world that the Taliban are not on our payroll, that they would be listening to everything what we are saying, but we can try and we can persuade the world that let's make Afghanistan as a place of conversion of interests, because we have we had issues like you discussed in a very detailed, the Indian influence there, and then the situation in Pakistan where TTP and BLA and other terrorist organizations, we believed that they had been having sanctuaries there and they had been operating from there. The United States, they had issues with Al-Qaeda. Similarly, Chinese, they have issues of militancy from there to their Xinjiang province. Similarly, the Russians. So this is, I think, an important time that if in our, foreign policy, and that is what we have been trying to do. And the other thing, which is, I think, more important recently, we very, clearly, the army chief, you would have, you can recall that statement that we are now from the strategic to geopolitics to the geoeconomic, that would be our objectives. So if we try to build our relations based on those things, because sometimes what happens is that we rely more on very, emotional sort of things, like, we expect that since the Saudis, since the Arabs, they are the Muslims, so they should be, favoring Pakistan in different matters. But the in real politics and the world stage, the relationships are not defined by that. It is, the interests of the countries. And when it comes to the interests of the countries, it's the economy. And we should try to build up those relationships based on, mutual, where we can have, better economic models. Like, if we have been engaged with the USA for the last so many years, with the prism of Afghanistan. Once this situation has changed now, we have different other aspects on which we should be trying to build those relations with all those countries, including these Middle Eastern countries.
And I think things have really improved over a period of time. Jal Sahab, if I may ask you this question, that we always used to read in Urdu papers, it used to be Brother Islami Mulk, Muslim Ummah, in English, Muslim Brotherhood. Sir, do you think anything of that sort exists in today's world, sir? This brotherhood concept, because we are Muslims? Because, sir, I've seen wars between Iran and Iraq for such a long time. So many Muslim countries, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, UAE against Yemen, and so forth. So, do you really believe that this particular concept still prevails?
Well, I think only in the minds of certain few people, and also
not in reality.
Not in reality.
Correct.
It is a sort of an ideal concept. And in any case, the Muslim countries are so dependent on the West or on other major powers, whether it be the US or whether it be China or whether it be Russia. You see, the reason for that is that they are technologically and industry-wise, they are extremely backward. Their educational level, their knowledge of science and technology is very, very limited. And then their quality of governance, not only the quality, the type of governance, most of them, there are hardly any democracies in the Muslim world.
Correct.
So from the political angle, from the economic angle, from technology and science and technology angle, everywhere they are extremely backward. So there is a great dependence of theirs on either the West or other China or other countries. So that makes them, in a way, not really truly independent. Then they cannot possibly support. Then there is, of course, divisions between the Shias and the Sunni, because they think that Iran promotes Shiism and the
Saudi
Saudis
Arabia,
think
Wahhabism. Yeah.
Wahhabism. So I think this is also, which is so unfortunate, because the whole concept of Muslim Ummah, what you were talking about, and Muslim Brotherhood is completely defeated as a consequence. In fact, in reality today, what you find is that these very countries of the Arab world are today very close to Israel in order to counter Iran, because they don't have that power to counter. And the US, especially President Trump, has been helping the Arab countries to sort of get closer.
And he was very successful, sir.
Yeah, and very successful at that.
We ended up seeing the UAE ambassador in Israel, sir. That was,
and he was so happy.
remember, sir, young guy.
Yeah.
So this is what is the reality.
And it's sort of is projecting it as a great achievement.
All right. Now, Ghauri Saab, another important factor, and I think Pakistan should be praised for that. And because according to our very dear old friend, Mr. Akram Zaki, may Allah bless his soul, I think one of the most senior diplomats in Pakistan, he used to always tell me that, the art of diplomacy in any country is making more friends and reducing the number of enemies. If I may ask you this question, sir, do you think we have been able to do so? Ghauri Saab?
Faisal, I think we have been, initially, as I said, that, there were some mistakes and some projections that the way, some statements came, that it felt that we are going on one camp. and that was your all baskets in one camp. That was the Chinese camp. But then, but later on, we have been trying that to diversify our relations. But unfortunately, the response we are getting, be it the Americans, especially the Americans, that is very cold shouldered response. But still, we hope and we should try that we should not, though America has not that leverage that it had earlier in the world, but still it would remain a major player. Then the other, I think, very important bloc, that is the European Union. And when it comes to the European Union, I guess during the last few years, we have made some endeavors, and especially when it comes to FATF and those issues, we have tried and genuinely tried to address those reservations. But still, I feel that when it comes to human rights, the rights of minorities, and those things that matter a lot to the Western world and the Western public, because it's the situation on the ground that also reflects a lot to your relationship with the rest of the world. So we have to be cognizant of those factors that have been source of criticism against us. But yes, we as you have discussed, that during the last few years we had a significant improvement of our relationship with Russia, with China, of course. But at the same time, during the last few months, we have seen that the attacks on the Chinese nationals, the unfortunate terrorist incidents, and which is something I think that we should be taking very seriously, that if they are happening, despite that we have a reserved, a full reserved, unit for them for their protection. And then even then there have been some incidents of these terrorism incidents occurring in our country, because when it comes to when we would be seen as a peaceful country, because other than the foreign relations, why we want good foreign relations with the other country, because we want that investments should come, we should have a good image of our country, and that happens only when situation at the domestic front, on the ground is better. So we have we had been projecting Pakistan as a destination for the tourists, and that would be only possible when we have a better law and order situation in the country, better law and order in the country, when we have all those things. So I mean, yes, there is a need to diversify the things, but at the same time, those
all right. We've also been joined in by Ambassador Jauhar Saleem Saab. He's the Pakistani ambassador stationed in Italy. He's also joined us. Excellency, Assalamu Alaikum ji. Jauhar Saab, Assalamu Alaikum. I think your computer seems to be mute, sir. Can you just switch it on, please? Jauhar Saab? Hello? Jauhar Saab, can you hear me? But anyway, let's hope that we get connected to Ambassador Jauhar Saleem also. But sir, European Union, that is something very important.
Yeah.
So whether you talk about, because sir, one thing is for sure, because whenever we talk about narratives, we heard this narrative, weapons of mass destruction. It was sold well by Mr. Colin Powell. Later on, he left that party, right, sir? You talk about weapons of mass destruction, or you talk about war on terror, again, a Western narrative. You talk about anti-Muslim sentiments that were raised, Islamophobia, Western narrative, sir. My point is, sir, that West is so influential when it comes to narratives, whether you talk about imposing sanctions or FATF issue for that matter, sir. The point is, sir, that you can't leave them. You need to have a very strong relationship with them because you have had it earlier also. So changing the direction would be a lot difficult. Your take, sir.
I think European Union is extremely important. You know, whether it is Italy or whether it is France or especially Germany, I mean, there is so much that they can offer to Pakistan, and our relationship with them has always been really good in a way, although there have been differences and there have been sometimes you know, difficult times, but and they are also influenced by the US, our relations with the US. But by and large, I think it's one of the most important areas in our countries with whom we should have very good relations. And of course, Britain is another one with whom we should continue to have very solid relationship, because there is so much of common interest between the two countries. So I think there is a great scope for improving our foreign policy. Well, they are doing very well, but at the same time, I think the horizons can be further sort of widened, and we should continue to sort of improve our relationship in terms of economics and business and trade, because that is the one which is going to really matter in the future. If, and as they say that we have to focus on geoeconomics, but in order to focus on geoeconomics, your internal politics in Pakistan has to be very good and very strong.
Because it is always believed that your internal, politics, in fact, is a reflection of your foreign policy.
So, and then at the same time, if your political relationship with other countries is good, then only you will have a better economic relationship.
I think, sir, this is the way forward now, and I think Pakistan should pursue it. But I think there will be a lot of challenges, and let's hope in the coming days we could do a show on the foreign policy challenges to Pakistan.
I think the Prime Minister is doing a lot on that.
A lot on that, sir. But anyway, General Saab, thank you so much for your presence, sir. And thank you so much, Ghauri Saab, for your presence as well. And unfortunately, we couldn't talk to Ambassador Jauhar Saleem Saab. There was some technical problem. And thank you very much also to Dr. Zarqa Sarwardi for giving her input as well. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you again, inshallah, tomorrow. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.